Hello, all you beautiful people in Webtown. Your friendly neighborhood wrestling historian Matt Legit here to bring you another delectable documentary from yours truly. From the cornfields of the Midwest to the bright lights of Ted Turner's WCW, Rip Rogers has seen it all and done it all. Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, John Cena, and Dave Bautista stand as testament to the fact that Rip Rogers is one of the greatest trainers in the history of professional wrestling. Tonight we explore the wrestling roots of Rip Rogers. This is A Hustler's Story.
Went to Seymour High School, and the school paper in 1972 said I wanted to go to college, play football, then I wanted to be a championship goddamn wrestler. So I became a championship wrestler. How I got in there, didn't know anybody, didn't know a wrestling school. I was the biggest fucking mark in the world. Got every wrestling magazine there was, and there used to be about, God, there must have been 8 to 10 magazines that come out every month. So I knew everybody and everybody, the territory, you knew all the...
For a second, we gotta comb your hair. We're gonna be...
Well, I didn't bring a brush with me because it wouldn't fit in my goddamn fanny pack. Well, that's what I did on my other shit.
There we go. That looks good.
I used to have a lot of hair, then I got old, and the son of a bitch, I got about 8 hairs. It gets wet, looks like 4. I didn't go to no wrestling school, put it that way. When I was in college, I wrote a letter to Vern Gagne and sold myself. I told him I was a shade under 6 feet, well over 200 pounds, 203. And I told him I was graduating from college and wanted to go to his barn, his wrestling school. And he wrote me back, and he said, I just got done with the class, and I think that was the one Steamboat was in.
You came up in Vern's barn then?
No, I never went. No, what I did was, in the meantime, I went to Oak Hill, West Virginia, this buddy of mine. There's this old guy when I was in college, a guy named Masher Stevens. He wasn't even smart, but he had a ring in Indianapolis in top of an old VFW club. So nobody there was smart, so we get in there and play around. We didn't know nothing. We have a right-handed headlock. We just do the shit we saw on TV. Never had a match, but got in the ring and would just play wrestling. So this guy named Steve Cooper was there, and he lived in Southwest Virginia. So he went home and he worked at WOAY TV studio in Oak Hill, West Virginia, which is 10 miles from Beckley. So he called me up on the phone. He says, "Hey, I wrestled a match." And I said, "Oh, fuck, you did not." He goes, "No, I taped it on the phone, tape recorder, so I heard him. And there's Steve Cooper doing this and that." I said, "Oh, cool." He says, "I got you booked next week." Holy shit, I'm going to have my first goddamn match, right? So I'd already had my Carlin Hildegard shit, my K&H specials, my 5-0 trunks, my Bolero, my capes, all the shit, Dr. X mask, Destroyer mask. I had the kayfabe boxing boots and stuff like that. So he takes me to Oak Hill, West Virginia. So I go there, and this promoter named Warren Schoenbeck, he goes, "Okay, you're built pretty good." So I just basically shut up because I knew if I opened my mouth, I was screwed. I just shook my head, "Okay." And he says, "So you work babyface?" I go, "Okay." And he says, "You're built pretty good, so you go over, okay?" And I'm saying, "Okay, babyface, over." And he said, "And when you get the pencil, go home." So now there's a baby face. I'm looking in the mirror, and there's a pencil. He said, "When I put the pencil to my nose, go home." Okay, go home. When the mat, okay, I'm gonna do this. I don't know what the fuck's going on, because everything was kayfabe then. So I'm in the goddamn dressing room. I bullshit my way in. I had my shit though. Look good. I had the black afro and 21, 22 years old, right? And I was teaching school and was a football coach at Union City, Indiana. So I had this first match. So I'm working with this guy. In the corner, I see this guy, B.B. Coleman. He's cutting fucking blades and putting it up on his fucking fingers. I'm scared to death. Holy shit, this motherfucker's gonna carve somebody up, right? So I'm working with some guy, and he says, "Hey, grab my arm." I say, "Fuck you," And in the meantime, I go out to the ringside, and I don't know if I'm a good guy. I just knew that the heels would always yell, so I was a good guy, but I was yelling at the fans because I saw them do that on TV. So I can't get mad at the goofs that work today when they're just copying shit they see, because I did the same shit. So I'm in the first match. The guy says, "Grab my arm." I say, "Fuck you, I ain't doing that." So then he hits me, boom. I said, fuck, that didn't even hurt, you know. Fuck, I must have some adrenaline going, right? So he says, no, suddenly hits me hard. Oh, fuck, you know. So then he fucking grabbed me, and he grabbed me, and I said, fuck, he ain't even doing it. I can get out of this easy, right? So you can imagine what a match it was. It was the absolute greatest shitology match of all time. Unfortunately, I don't have it on tape, so Bob brought me a Pepsi, not a goddamn Coke. He promised me a Coke, and he brought me a Pepsi. Oh, you should have fucking went to the store or something. Jesus Christ. You promised me a Coke, Bob, and you bring me a Pepsi. Bring that sumbitch over here.
Here's your Pepsi.
Okay, Bob Johnson, a Calgary legend right here. He's over, okay. So anyway, Coleman convinces me, he takes me to WWF TV about 2 weeks later in Philadelphia, and I think it was Allentown. So Tony Gurria's there, Larry Zbyszko's there. Hell, I got the Superstar Billy Graham picture. All the boys autographed it, you know. So it's a collector's item. Still got it at home in my scrapbook somewhere. Hell, Superstar Billy Graham, Gorilla Monsoon, he was dead. Fuji, all the guys that are dead, they're all on there, which was awesome. But I wouldn't part with that son of a bitch. And Bob Backlund took me to the gym because I was a stupid greenhorn. They took all my jock strap and everything and hung them up on the chandeliers. I think it was the Lincoln Hotel. I can't remember. I think it was something like that. And a bunch of guys were fucking with me, but I didn't know they were fucking with me because I was such a greenhorn. I was as straight as you could get, a total fucking dumbass, the world's worst professional wrestler in the history of professional goddamn wrestling. And I tell everybody that I goddamn teach, I said, hey, everything you do, I was worse. But if you stick with it and have a good fucking attitude, you can learn this shit. Because all of you are better than fucking me. So if somebody said you was good to, I know I was the FS, I was the fucking shits. I was fucking horrible. But anyway, some guys was messing with me playing pool, and Johnny Rods told him to, you know, leave me alone. So I said, oh man, Johnny Rods said, oh fuck, all right. You know what I mean? So, but I was the world's biggest fucking mark. I'd come in, and since I wasn't really trained, I didn't know the etiquette of wrestling. So I was never a guy that shook somebody's hand or whatever. I was really embarrassed about, I said, these guys are stars. Why in the fuck would they want to talk to me or anything? And it was emotional for me. I was the lowest, the bottom as you could fucking get. But then, but once I worked there, and then I worked for them, then I started working for the old Sheik. I worked for Dick the Bruiser. He'd use me on his shows, and Bruiser hated me because Wilbur loved me, and that was just it. And then and then I worked for Nick Goulas. Bruiser would book me in TV for Bob Geigel, St. Joe TV, Wrestling at the Goddamn Chase, and he had used me on his shows. And I was rotten, but I went to him and I said, I got a petition in my hometown. I said, if you run a show there, everybody will come. So he said, fuck, I was a go-getter, right? So we had 700 people at the fucking Armory, which at that time was really good. And you'd have 4 matches, 8 guys on the card, and Bruiser wasn't on the card either. So I basically do that goddamn fucking house just because I was a shits, but I was a local boy. Not worth a shit, fucking rotten. But nobody knew it was rotten. Hey, he was a local boy. Okay, what the hell, fuck, right? And I was the biggest Dick the Bruiser mark as you could get because there wasn't no cable TV, so I grew up watching Dick the Bruiser wrestling. And that's all I know till I went to college, and then Nick Goulas put his tape in Louisville. Then I lived in Seymour, which was halfway between Indianapolis and Louisville, so I got the Louisville wrestling and the Dick the Bruiser wrestling. And then I'd adjust that antenna, I'd get the Sheik's wrestling out of Cincinnati. Then I'd adjust that antenna late on Saturday night, and I could get the Paducah wrestling, Phil Golden's All-Star Wrestling. And each one was different. That's how cool wrestling was then. Now everyone's the goddamn same. It's fucking horrible. It's the fucking shits. Jesus Christ. One night coming home, I'm driving my goddamn Pinto, and he's got his lights off, and he's banging the back of my fucking car. And I'm, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the? Then he passed me up. Ha 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 ha. He's got the fucking beer speeding off, right? Then every week he would rib me. Shira, call me up every Monday at 9 a.m. You call me for my bookings. Well, I'd call him. He wouldn't answer the phone, right? Then about 10 after 9, I'd call him. He didn't answer. You were supposed to call me at 9. He's just ribbing me. You know what I mean? He would hardly ever have me booked, but he'd always make a big deal about calling for bookings and then, oh, let me check my book. You know, he's only running 4 towns in a month, right? Let me check my book. Well, it's the same as last week, you know. But he'd say, I'm paying tonight, you gotta wait. So he wanted to wait there in his jockstrap on the shitter, and he'd pay you, right? But if you wouldn't wait, he'd cut your money. I wanted to go out, I was 22. I wanted to go out, fucking go to the discos and shit and try and hustle women. I said, no, boss, I ain't waiting. I'm out of here. He goes, but I'm the boss. I said, well, that's great, but dock me what you want. I don't give a shit. I'm out of here. So then when I was going off to Papa's, he said, well, they don't have places where you work every day. You know what I mean? So, and it was from the philosophy of Don Owen, whenever you broke in, somebody locally would come back to haunt you. That's why he wouldn't break in Billy Jack. He made him go to Calgary. Dick the Bruiser didn't like me because within 2 years I was running towns against him. I had the Indiana promoter's license in my name, and I was a thorn in their fucking side because we ran towns, because we had the Louisville TV and it went all into southern Indiana, the same town Bruiser was at. But he was out there. He was a legend. God, he was a freak. He was a phenom. He drew money. He drew money in St. Louis, in Chicago, in Indianapolis, and he was on top for years and years. Yes, he promoted, but he knew how to keep himself good. He knew how to draw money. He knew how to make himself the show. He knew how to get over, and he knew how to stay over. And he wrestled from what, probably 50. About 57, I'm 56, 55 or whatever. He wrestled for 30 years and drew big money. Finally, when New York went big time, you know, he was out of business like the rest of us. But he was a legend. And when I was in college, I had Dick the Bruiser's picture on my desk, on the wall and everything. So I wouldn't trade nothing for anything. Oh, anyway, I'm working for Bruiser, and Paul Christie, he said, hey, the Papos are gonna running the Maritimes are going to be partners with Emil Dupre. This is summertime 1978. So I'd been partners with Lanny on Christmas night. They had some kind of tournament or whatever for Nick Goulas, and I was the shits. And I even got a picture of it somewhere at home somewhere, me and him, and we lost, and of course I lost. But Paul Christie said, here's their number, call them. So I called Randy, and me and Randy hit it off. He was a year older than me. He was a real athlete, and he says, no, come on up. I said, look, I'm horrible. I said, I'll do what you fucking tell me. And I said, I look good, and I'm pretty athletic, but I'm just, and I love wrestling, but I'm just not any good. He said, that's okay, I can work around that. I said, are you sure? He said, yeah. So I went up there. So I went up there and worked 4 months, and then Randy called Nick Goulas and got me booked full time for Nick Goulas. And then I turned heel there because I was a shit. Oh, I was Hercules Samard in the First I was Mark Shire, my real name. Then name number 2 was Hercules Samard in the Maritimes. So I got the bright idea of being the disco kid for Nick Goulas, and that was the fucking total shits too. But I looked good, and so what the hell? So I guess some women came.
What was Nick Goulas like?
Goddamn boy, I'd like to pay you what you're worth, but I got to pay you something. He was a crabby old motherfucker. But he used me and I wasn't worth a shit. So thank you very much, Mr. Goulas. And I was fucking rotten. And he used me, and I learned. I got to work with Tojo, Gypsy Joe, Randy, Mexican, a lot of guys that were real pros, Kenny Lucas a lot of times, Dutch Mantell. I got to work with these guys, and I got to learn. I wasn't there to make money. I was there to try and break even and survive and to learn. Every place you learn a different style of interviews, of talking. Some people would have a 2-camera setup. Some people would have the fucking 4-camera setup. Then the Von Erichs come out with the 6-camera setup or whatever. And you learn from each one, and you learn from all the old guys and how to, everything you stole. There's nothing I did in this world that was original. I took it from somebody maybe 30, 40 years ago. But then when you come out in your style, they think it's you. Now, if you're not on WWE, if you grab the side headlock, oh, he got that in WWE. You know, they think all the guys in no, are they any good? No, they're fucking C- wrestlers. Excuse me, that's the way it is. It's a watered down product. You don't have to fucking be able to do promos for 15 different markets with weekly towns talking shit. This week, Tuesday at Louisville versus Dutch Mantell cage match, go, boom. They fucking script your matches, they script your fucking promos, And but the thing about it is that's the epitome. If you can make it there, you're a fucking all-star, and their checks don't bounce. So if you want to make it, you might say, well, I really don't like my character, I don't like it, blah, 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 I'm losing my, who cares? It's all about making money, and that's all there is to it. I'm like a dumbass, I never give a shit about the goddamn money. You know, that's how stupid I was. Can you turn that phone off, that piece of shit? So then I left there, and Michael Hayes come down and Terry Gordy's Freebirds come in. So they give me the number to Frankie Kane, who's the great Mephisto, who was running George C. Calkins' Mississippi territory. So Miser talked to him, that's Angelo, and Frankie Kane gave me the name Rip Rogers because he said I reminded him of Eddie Graham, who was Rip Rogers in 1955 Texas. That was a compliment, was what that was. So I worked for there, and then on March 13, 1979, Randy said, get your ass back here because we're going to do our ICW tapes. So we cut 10 tapes in ICW in Louisville at the Channel 41 studio under director David Tung, and we had all our family, friends sitting in the audience and whatever, and we had matches. So then we went out and moved to Lexington because we basically, I said we threw a dart right there and it says Lexington, so then we moved there. But our first TV was Hazard. Within about 3 years, we had TV in Hazard. We had TV in Oak Hill, West Virginia, because I went and got that one. We had TV in Louisville. We had TV in Evansville. We had TV in Memphis. We had 4 TVs in Illinois. We had 2 in Montana, 1 in Puerto Rico, and 1 in Mobile. And the last 4, they were paying us each week. And then Red Bastien got a tape. We was sending him a tape on Channel 20 in San Francisco, I think it was. After I made the tapes, I just stayed with Randy, and we was working for a couple outlaw promoters, working about 3 times a week and just training at the gym and having a good time because we was young and didn't spend no money anyway. And then Lanny Popo, he come home from Don Owens, so Lanny booked me out for Don. So I went out for Don, and I stayed there about 5-6 months, whatever the hell it was, until Randy said, hey, we need you back here, come on home. So I come on home, and I was there for I don't know how long, and then I talked to Buddy, and so I come back for the 2-week thing just to get the loser leave town at, and I wanted to see, there's a couple broads I wanted to see and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But basically, the Papos, Randy, his mother, Judy, she did my hair and whatever, Angelo, Randy, they all took care, and that's where I learned the business. So me and Randy basically lived together for about 4 years. And so I just made every trip with him usually, and he would lecture me, tell me, and then I learned all about booking and finishes, and a lot of times we ran 2 towns on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, and sometimes we even ran 3 towns. But we was fighting Barnett, we was fighting Jerry Jarrett, Sheik, every promoter there was, we was against them. We were outlaws. And then Garvin and Roop and Malenko and Orton, they all tried to take Ron Fuller's territory in Knoxville. So we were sharing, they were coming into our TV, and we'd split the cost. 2 of the matches would be their matches, and 2 of the matches would be ours, and we started switching the guys. So it looked like we had more guys, and we had some great talent. We just had shitty TVs and shitty time slots. And the incumbents had the good stations with the solid time slots. And any time our TV would move, it would you might lose 2/3 of your house, because them wrestling fans know if it's Saturday morning at 10, they tune on Saturday morning. If it wasn't there, they'd turn the channel or whatever.
How did you end up coming to Portland, Oregon?
Lanny had worked out there as Lanny Holiday, and he called up Don Owens and got me booked out there. And when I was out there, he had the one guy, I can't remember his name, but he had everything arranged where he picked me up, and I think he had a leg cut off, and he had I can't remember his name. And I stayed at his house a couple of days before he took me to the Bomber. All the boys stayed at the Bomber, and they're in Milwaukee. Dutch was always over there. Piper was always over there. Johnny Mantell lived in one. Salvatore Bellomo lived one. I lived in one. Iceman lived in one. And all the other boys were over there. And on a Saturday night in Portland, shit, that thing was rocking. There'd be so many rats there. hot bitches dressed to fucking kill, doing whatever, banging on the doors, wanting in. It was fucking heaven. But it was almost as good as I actually saw the girls in Dothan, Alabama, the rats lined up, right, getting into Robert Fuller's room. He had the big fucking hammer. Fucking Robert Fuller was legendary. The legendary lover, and them girls just be going, whoo, be waiting in line for him to get a hold of him. It was fucking awesome. When wrestling was wrestling. Now the boys play the video games. Now which one? Oh hell, I wouldn't want to be, no, I want to play video games. And Portland was such a cool territory because you worked Portland every Saturday, then you'd have a Portland special every once in a while. You had Seattle every other Wednesday. You had the Roseburg Medford gimmick every 2 weeks, and then you had every Thursday was Salem. Every Friday was Eugene. Yeah, I said you had the Portland special about once a month on a Tuesday, and then every Saturday night you had Portland wrestling from the sports arena. And when I first went there, it was live, and then Killer Brooks did something. I think they puked on somebody on TV or whatever, or they burned, or Piper did the thing. They burned, Buddy burned his kilt or whatever, and then it was put on a delay, which was cooler because then you could go back to Buddy's and we could watch the tape. So that was cool, and then we could tape it there and critique it and whatever, blah, blah, blah. It was such a cool place, and I was the low man on the totem pole. I just shut the fuck up and did what I told, and I fucking learned. And Adrian Adonis was there, Ron Starr was there, and Piper used to get on Adrian Adonis because he would bully me, and he'd get on him about it. He says, no, he's got to learn how to do this. He's got to learn to lead, because Adrian wanted to call everything, even though he was a babyface. So Piper would get on him all the time, and then he became a little bit better, more friendly to me, but he was just tough son. I was a pussy. These guys was tough son of a bitches, you know, and they wasn't afraid to go out and get shit. I didn't drink or anything. Adrian was very talented. He was a good pro. He would bully me a lot. Well, he could, and he was a tough guy, and he didn't respect me, but I wouldn't have respected me if I was in his place. Piper didn't make him, but suggested that he respected Roddy so much that he would let him not do anything that I didn't tell him to. And then they would critique me after the match. Okay, I got it. Okay, next time we'll try that. Okay. So he was friendlier to me at the end, but then he went off to be with Jesse for Vern Gagne in the AWA.
Tell me about Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Fucking Pipe's the best, man. Fucking Pipe's the goddamn best. You could work with him. He had that goddamn fire. He did nothing that was dangerous. He was just a pro. That son of a bitch could talk. If you was a heel, you hated that motherfucker. If he's a baby face, you fucking loved that son of a bitch. And he encouraged me to lead every match, and he made guys, when they had more experience than me, to shut up and listen and to let me make mistakes so I could learn this shit, so down the line I'd be better for everybody. But that was because he pushed the issue. And when I was in Portland, before I went back to ICW and Randy Savage called me back home, he had me booked for Gene LaBelle in LA to go work on Topside Unseen, just on his word. That's what a nice motherfucker he was. We were basically the same age, but these guys, it was broken in, were properly trained, were real fucking amateur fighters, MMA guys, judo guys, and stuff like that. And I was a football, basketball, baseball guy, you know. But I loved pro wrestling. Me and Buddy made all the trips together with the bushwhackers, the sheep herders, Butch and Luke. So it was me, Butch, and Luke, and Buddy. Every trip, it was us. So it was awesome. I just shut the hell up and listened to those guys talk that shit, and listened to Buddy tell the stories. And Buddy was just awesome. When you can go to a traditional territory and you're the star and you're a heel, you're fucking good. You know how to keep your goddamn heat. That Buddy could draw with anybody. They hated him so fucking much. He was so fucking good. Buddy went to Vern's school, and the first time he dropped out. Did you know that story? Where Buddy dropped out, it was too hard, And Wahoo, Buddy was on the ring crew. Buddy dropped out of high school. And Wahoo took Buddy to the town, and he said, hey, Buddy, if you just stick it out, they will eventually help you. So I give Buddy, so Buddy had the confidence to go back, and all the ex-pro football players, they couldn't take it. It was too tough for them, but Buddy just hung out. And they said, okay, now we're going to start. All that shit we showed you before, forget it. Now we're going to help you. And Buddy said, oh my God, I couldn't have took it anymore. I'd go to his house and eat. I'd play at the dogs, pepper, pretzel, and pebbles. And I walked in, he had the TV screen, he had all the old VHS stuff, the thick-ass tapes. And it's like when I had to work with Rick Martel, I said, I'm going to work with Rick Martel. He says, well, here's his matches. So I just looked at them, and Martel like shit his pants because the match was so good. I said, well, I knew what you do because Buddy had all the... So Buddy was like a hero mentor. He's a year older than me. But so I went off and bought me a VCR, so I started taping every match. So I got the library from shit from the 70s. Ricky Martel was ambidextrous, and he was light as a fucking feather. The only thing he couldn't do was talk good English, which hurt him. But he was a humble baby face. He had fucking fire. He was athletic. He looked fucking great. He was a great fucking pro. But when he turned him fucking heel, when he was with WWF, and he did the model gimmick, now that was heat because he could talk that shit then. But as a baby face in a American market where you got down south, you were a hillbilly, or you're in a certain Pacific Northwest, or if he'd be somewhere else, it was hard to really communicate there because he was the booker over in Hawaii at one time. Buddy went over there and Piper went over there, I remember. And that's where Buddy found the Bushwhackers, and he convinced them to come back to Portland because when they was in Calgary, they were Sweet William and Crazy Nick Carter. Yeah, Crazy Nick Carter. Butch and Luke, they'd get the car, and me and Buddy would be in the back seat. So they're fucking having the marijuana cookies, smoking the fucking Bob Hope, the dope, the marijuana, and Butch is fucking the music with the fucking tape going. Buddy'd give me the office, and we had these fucking jars where you put like fruit in or something, like canned fruit or whatever, and I'd shit in the jar before we left. So then Butch would be fucking driving. I'd take that son of a bitch out and put it in back of him and take that son of a bitch off, put it right. He'd go, oh, fuck, mate. Oh, fuck, who shit the goddamn pants? Oh, fuck, mate. And I put it back. You know, about 5 minutes later, Buddy, give it to him again. So I do the thing. So the whole fucking trip, we're acting like I'm farting and everything. I had a bunch of egg whites and stuff. And we'd just fucking put that son of a bitch right in back their fucking head. And they would be so fucked up on dope, they didn't fucking know. It was funnier than shit. They was funny mother. They would cook them fucking steaks and shit. They could cook, holy shit, baked potatoes, thick old fucking steaks and everything. And a lot of times on the overnights, it's like we'd go Roseburg, Medford. We'd stay at some hotel, but I'd sleep out in the car because I didn't want to spend any money. And they just fucking laugh. But I'd wake up and I'd say, I made it. You spent all that money and I made it. Just to do it. But in Hawaii, that's when they wanted me to go over there for that big show in '85, the one that Ada ran, and I wouldn't go because I was living in Tampa. Why in the hell would I want to go all the way over there to something that's going to have 60 matches there, knowing from what I heard they're going to screw me on my fucking payoff, and I'm not a fucking mark for going to Hawaii, don't give a shit. Because I was living in goddamn Florida anyway, and I don't give a shit about the ocean or the beach anyway.
Tell me about Tough Tony Bourne.
Tough Tony Bourne. He called me punk. Then again, he called everybody punk. He would hit you with that damn gut punch. He'd jump off the top and knock the wind out of you. Sometimes we'd go out and he'd take us to a restaurant, but he'd kayfabe. He would buy our food and have me and Buddy sit over there. But he'd pay for it. That's how cool Tony was. Tony was so big, he was bigger than life. So when you looked at him, you didn't look to how tall he was. You just saw that big fucking head, them ugly ass cauliflower ears, and you know that son of a bitch was a tough motherfucker. And it's like when I was in Germany working, and I told Ole Anderson, I said, I saw this guy named Fit Finley. I think he's the best heel I've ever seen. He goes, well, how big is he? I said, fuck, I don't know. I never paid any attention. I just knew I was mesmerized by watching him take over, be aggressive, and the baby face, no matter how big he was always the underdog. And when it was time to fucking back up and beg and bump, that motherfucker was right there. And he was a real tough son of a bitch too. So anyway, so then I got Regal in at WCW, then Fit come in, Dave Taylor come in, and that's how the English guys come in. And then worked with Matt when Matt first started, and he was learning. And then Buddy Rose was married to Tony Ray, so you had all the shit in there. So they were the living legends of Portland, Oregon. Oh, I got to work with Don Leo Jonathan. I remember he slammed me off the top. It was the first time it ever hurt. But he was a big guy. He was older. He was athletic, and he was very coordinated. So I can just imagine how good he was when he was young.
Tell me about Dutch Savage.
Dutch was Dutch, okay? He hated Buddy because Buddy got it. So anytime you're an older guy and you have it, but you got the younger guy that's got it, they've seen your act. And Buddy was so exciting because he was heavy, he was athletic, he had that blonde hair, he was flamboyant. The fans hated him. So that when he turned babyface, remember when they hit the fucking ring and everything, then they fucking loved him. And Buddy was I watched him 2 out of 3 fall matches, Texas, he would give up on a headlock. He would give up on an arm bar. And he made everything so simple. He treated wrestling like it was goddamn fucking real. He'd do those show bumps. He had so much fucking people. He was just such a smart aleck. Then he could run. We did a 40-yard dash, and that son-of-a-bitch beat me out of the blocks. I couldn't believe it. Then I ended up beating him, and he got mad because I beat him. But we would go out and play that slow pitch softball and stuff. He'd buy me a glove, a bat, and spikes for me and everything. And like when they had the stuff with the Portland Beavers, and there would be some of the Seattle Supersonics, the Portland Trailblazers, different athletes and stuff. Because I remember hitting batting practice off Dick Poe, and he like freaked it because I knew who he was. I said, "You man used to be on the Louisville Colonels AAA." Fuck, all right, you know what I mean? So he was throwing me some shit, and I played 4 years of baseball in college, so I could still hit. But he was grooving them. I said, "Oh, Rant," I jacked a couple, right? And then all of a sudden he said, "Handle this," and all of a sudden it went whoop. I didn't even see the son of a bitch, right? And this is a AAA. These guys were so good, so fucking talented. I've been lucky to hit a goddamn foul ball. You know what I mean? It's such a different, it'd be like men playing with fucking boys. These guys were so talented and so fucking good.
Did you get a chance to work at all with Ed Wiskowski?
He was with Buddy when I got there, then he took off to do something. Took some time off, so then I slid right back in there. And then I left and come back, and then we were the new army. Me and Buddy and the Polish fucking Prince. And Ed was just so fucking good. And he was older. Well, hell, he'd been, Ed, then he became the Maharishi, then he was the Colonel de Beers, and he was Derek Draper, different places. And I think Sonny Myers trained him in St. Joe, Missouri when he started. Hell, Ed's still around, still playing slow pitch softball, I think. He was just a hell of a guy. He would teach me a lot about picking up women. He'd have the girls, we'd call them the maybes because they might maybe go out, but Ed would go in, we'd go to the house, and he ain't married no more anyway, but he would like pull the lamp back and there would be a picture of him eating his girl's pussy or whatever. Then he'd go in the cookie jar and pull out a picture with the sister or whatever, right? So he was over with me, the fucking colonel. You can't get on, hey, great fucking worker, great fucking guy, and the son bitch got some pussy, so what the fuck, right? and what's the most important thing in life is getting your dick sucked.
Tell me about Elton Owens.
Well, Jesus Christ. Piper taught me all the tricks about Elton. Now, Elton, I'll tell you a couple things. Once we were in Salem, Oregon, and Buddy had the street fight with Agent Adonis. So there's Piper in the dressing room with Adrian. Every time Elton would go by, he was drinking some vodka or whatever, and they'd put the pill in there, so Elton's getting all fucked up. And then Piper would fucking throw the fart spray on him, so, holy shit, who's shitting their pants in here? And then Adrian Adonis would take the blade and he'd zip fucking his coat, you know. So Piper was teaching me. One night we're in fucking Eugene. He said, get in line to pay. He said, go first. I said, okay. I just sat there and Elton paid me. He says, now don't smile until you think you get what you want, because he'll read you and shit, right? I said, okay. And then he said, if I got paid, about 3 more guys, he said, get back in line. I said, what? He said, get back in line. Just do as I tell you. And Elton, I got back in bed, and Elton forgot he'd paid me, right? He's like me, can't remember shit because he's old. He sat right there and he paid me again. I said, holy shit, you know. Next night, did I overpay somebody? Jesus Christ. So then one night, Piper said, we're in Eugene. He says, hey, when Elton pays you, knock some money down and grab a stack of them bills. He had his money in hundreds, right? So I knocked it over, and Elton says, God damn it, you got to watch your money. I fucking hooked the thing, right? I said, oh, fuck, I hope Piper didn't set me up. And then Elton forgot about it again. Next couple days, whatever it was, he goes, huh? Did I overpay somebody again? I was short some money. And fuck. So Roddy'd come in. Whenever he was late, he'd have the something about the car, the water hose or something. He'd come in, oh, fuck. Oh, it's okay. That's okay, Roddy, or whatever. And then, God, when he was married to his first wife, was it Hallie? Was Hallie the first one or the second one? But she'd give us the free M&M sometime, and Elton caught her and he'd cut that off. But Elton would pay. He goes, okay, Rip, here you are, you're on first. It was 4-0, and he'd look at you and he said, oh, you took a hell of a bump. Here's an extra 5. And here's good attitude money. Here's an extra 5. And then in that battle royal, you was on second to last. Here's an extra 10. You know what I mean? And then he said, oh, and you got the color money. Here's an extra 15. You know what I mean? And that's the way it fucking was. But Don Owens, I never heard anybody say a goddamn word about Don Owens that wasn't positive. And he was just so fucking awesome. And he'd pay you in court. He'd act like he was goddamn poor. And he'd have fucking pay you off a roll of nickels, 2 rolls of pennies, a roll of dimes, a roll of quarters. You know what I mean? That's the way he paid you. But like on Portland on a Saturday night, Buddy Rose could work main event where he lived 20 minutes from there and make $500. And he would show up, you know, an hour before the show, and then we're back at his house watching the tape, and he made $500 with Don Owens because he paid some. Of course, he owned that Portland Sports Arena. You know, and the story of how I become the hustler was we was at Sandy Bar's flea market, and Buddy he was the Playboy, and he had the Playboy right there, and he says, here, he threw me the Hustler magazine, and he said, hey, look at this, me and you together, Playboy, and you're the hustler. And that's how I became the fucking hustler. So I was all on fucking Buddy. I remember when Elton sold Salem to Sandy. We was making the minimum with fucking Elton, and Sandy sold that sumbitch, and guys started working harder, and a lot of us, we was making $100 a night opening match. And Elton got mad about it because it drew. You know, he let it whatever, but Don had his cheap ass buildings, the same. And I remember we had me and Buddy against the Bushwhackers, so there was 3 dressing rooms. So we was the heels, they were heels, but they were baby faces against us. Then they had the other guys there. So that's some of the, and then it was in Seattle every 2 weeks, so that was always good. So Elton would pay you cash on the southern end, Roseburg, Medford, Albany, Salem, Eugene. Don would pay you in cash on Saturday nights or Portland Special. And then if we worked the Washington towns, you get a check on Saturday night from like Seattle, and say you worked Vancouver or whatever the hell it was. But when we was there, for a while we was going up to Vancouver to work for Gene Kaniski on Monday nights. And Buddy would get a van. There'd be me and the Bushwhackers, and Buddy would be in there, and we'd go up there and work. And they always guaranteed you at least 150 Canadian. So that was cool. So you was working like 2 territories. At the time, Don's tape was in Shires, because Buddy had been there before, Snook had been there before. I think Ed had been there before.
Lonnie had been there a lot.
Okay, yeah, but he was dead by then,
Yeah.
you know. But when I was there for Don, he was sending his tape in there, and he would run 2 shows on a Friday. He'd send part of the crew there, and then like Moretti would work there, Steve Pardee would work there, Mike Hennessy would work there, and then they would come up, and then when Buddy started cutting the heads and everything. I remember the first match when Pardee come in, he had the curly hair, the zits all over his fucking face. He was about 18 or 19. His first match was with me. So boom, 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 drop kick, Buddy hits the ring, drop kicks him, throws me over the top, throws him over the top, blah, 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 and Buddy starts the hair match gimmick. So he cut his hair, I think Mike Hennessy's head. Now the Bushwhackers got him, but I don't know if he got both of them or Peichel got him. Okay, and then he got fucking Red Bastine, and he got some more. I wasn't there at the time. Then when I come back, Buddy was there. He had the head shaved. He had the mask on. So the heat was trying to pull that fucking mask off. You know, and when they finally pulled it off, Buddy had his hair, you know, and it was brown, but it was, you know, it wasn't, you know, it was okay. There was no pressure out there. Nobody yelled and screamed at you. It was off. In a way, it was a nice place to fucking learn with no goddamn pressure, and you got to work every night. It didn't get any fucking better than that. Shit, you had all these top guys. It'd been like Portland. You'd say, well, there's Adrian Adonis. He worked for WWF. There was Roddy. He worked for WWF. Eventually, Matt Bourne worked for WWF. So like every territory you can go through, and all these guys became WWE superstars. Because when Vince went big time, he stole all this talent. So he had like 30 main eventers. So you're having guys that work main event, they're in the first and second match. So after 3 years, you've seen all their shit. And now he's got to replace them, but there ain't nowhere, how you'd replace them now? Instead of taking a little bit, he raped them. And then all the stars, they didn't mean anything anymore. Oh, we got to put Savage on color or Honky Tonk on color because people are sick of seeing them. They've been on TV too much. And now look at him, well, hell, you know, and this ain't a knock, but John Cena's been on every Monday night for how many fucking years? You know what I mean? With stuff like that. And before, that just didn't happen. They've seen your goddamn act. Then you don't draw anymore because it's fucking routine. I know you got new kids every year and new old people seeing it, but you're there too long. But what are you going to do? I mean, years ago, you'd go here. Most places, I wouldn't stay over a year. I'd stay 11 months max usually, because then if I was a heel, I could feel them. Once they keep seeing, it's like Kamala. First they're running from him, then after about 6 months, well, they're not really scared of him, and he's sort of funny, and he pats on his belly, and he's not, you know what I mean? They sort of start liking you because they keep seeing you all the time. He ain't really going to kill nobody, you know, and stuff like that. It wasn't, but when he first come out, they was running from him. Then after a while, people get used to your act, and they just, oh, he's funny. He sort of chuckles, ha ha ha, this and that. But that's the way it was in the wrestling business. The bad part about wrestling is it's usually about a 15, 20 years to understand this shit. Then when it finally kicks in, oh my God, is this shit easy? But you're busy changing shit and wanting to reinvent the wheel, and you don't need it. Just sell each other is all you got to do. If you're winning, let the other guy take more of the match. If you're losing, take more of the match. Always make an underdog and stuff like that. Make it a contest. Unless the boss tells you, you know, and then do what he asks. You know, if I'm the boss and it's your job to fucking dig a hole and then put dirt in it, okay, I got you. Just do as the boss. If Dusty says do this, and that's what he wants, you can't get in. Don't just do exactly as he. If you do exactly as he says, and it doesn't get over, he'll go, well, that's on me. He did exactly so. But if you try and throw your shit in there, then you're opening yourself up. No, I told you to do this because I wanted to see. You know what I mean? So these guys that get in these positions, there's a reason they're there. They've learned under Eddie Graham. They've learned under Dory Funk Sr. They're fucking experts at goddamn fucking wrestling. And my knowledge is like this, and their knowledge is like that. They're professors, and I'm a kindergartner.